Let's talk about the decolonising of England.
So, decolonising the curriculum. This is the new buzzword of the day for the leftists. It's been bumbling around for a fairly
few
large
years,
amount of time
actually.
now,
Yeah.
But it's sort of finally coming to fruition, so I thought we'd go over it a little bit, because there was a singular story which has really captured this issue.
Yeah.
Because there's actually been a lot of pushback from the academics, interestingly.
And I suppose it's worth us beginning by stating our position, that is, it doesn't seem to be rational to decolonise a country that wasn't colonised.
So the narrative from the lefts on this is that England is a colonizer, and therefore all of its writings and culture and everything else is of a colonizer, and therefore we must decolonize England by decolonizing their curriculum and how they think, and so on and so forth.
Okay, but in normal terms, that would mean the colonisation of an indigenous culture. Because the culture of England is, of course, indigenous to England, and so when these foreign ideas come from outside and come into English institutions and say, right, we need to start tearing down your cultural icons, we need to start tearing down your cultural heroes, all of the cultural works that you think are good, like Shakespeare, blah, blah, they'll have to go. That seems to be the sort of thing that ISIS would do.
Yeah, and it's the sort of thing a colonizer would do.
Yeah.
And the left actually had a term for this back in like Chomsky's years, which is like they used to call it cultural imperialism. It was a criticism of the United States, that the United States would burst into a country that has no American principles and enforce its culture upon them. Well, you know, what does it look like when it's woke American ideology, though? Can we still call it cultural imperialism? Which I think yes. Anyway,
Well, the French certainly will, won't they?
yeah, let's get into it. So, this is an article from The Guardian proclaiming how awful it is that only a fifth of UK universities say they are, quote, decolonising their curriculums.
Right,
so they wrote to every university that they could think of, and about 20% of them got back and said, yes, we are decolonising our curriculum.
So a fifth of UK universities are utterly and irredeemably corrupted with leftism. Gotcha.
Yes. So some quotes from this just to explain their position. The disclosure comes as universities are under pressure to modernise their syllabus and address the attainment gap between white students and those from black and minority ethnic backgrounds. So they're saying that brown-skinned students are performing less academically. Therefore, the solution to this is to decolonise the curriculum, which means...
Therefore, drag the other students down with them.
That's the solution.
And I'm sure that this, like the term brown excludes Asian, right?
Well, black and Asian minority ethnic, but in England, Asian means Pakistani Indian.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to use the word Oriental, am I?
Well, you can. There's nothing wrong with the word.
Well, I think it's a great word. I think it's an... Yeah, John's given me an Oriental pass.
You've got an O-pass, huh?
Yeah, but I think it's a nice word, too.
Yeah. No,
it sounds exotic and
It is
interesting.
actually
Sounds flattering.
like a pleasure, flattering word. Anyway, so continuing here, they say that the campaign for decolonising the curriculum will give a fuller version of British history that reflects injustices and lauds the contributions of black people who also won widespread support. This movement has also won widespread support from the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like, right, okay. So this is expressly political out of the get-go. Don't be fooled by this if anyone was.
Yeah.
So they say...
if Black Lives Matter are in support of it, I'm probably against it.
The Black Students Officer at the National Union of Students, because of course there is a specific black officer for these things, gave a statement talking about it. Decolonising the curriculum means providing an accurate portrayal of history and providing students and staff with the tools to critically identify how the university reproduces colonial hierarchies. So the way that the university works is producing hierarchies, and that's bad. This will empower them...
Hang on.
Let me finish the quote.
Okay.
This will empower them to confront and reject the status quo and ensure knowledge production reflects our diverse societies.
Right. How can a university operate without a hierarchy?
Can't.
Yeah. I mean, the teachers surely are superior to the students in knowledge, which is why they're teaching the students, which is in of itself a hierarchy.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's just absurd. But also there's a hint there. He wants to get rid of the status quo, and I'm just like, yeah, I know what you're after. The director of the Centre of Research in Race and Education at Birmingham University said every university should have this as a priority.
This is Kahindi Andrews University.
Yeah, it is
his department, it sounds
like. I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. If it is not in the strategic plan, it's not considered important to the university. So every university needs to do this, says the race grifters. Surprise, surprise. So it's not enough just to argue endlessly, as every university does, 100%, and including government organisations, that diversity, inclusion, and inclusiveness and equality and blah, 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 you know the buzzwords, are already in their charters. They have plans for them. They have departments who work on them endlessly. They get paid very handsomely for doing this pointless work.
Yep.
And that's not enough. We now need to go after the curriculums themselves. So it's not enough to just pray the priest. Like, all of your stuff has to be in line with the doctrine of wokeness.
So that reference, by the way, is a reference to a premium podcast that we recorded yesterday. It's not up yet, but it will be up, talking about the religious aspect of medieval guilds in England and how it very strongly reflects the sort of pseudo-religious aspect of wokeism in universities and things like that.
And companies, yeah.
And companies, yeah. It's really shocking how parallel these things appear to be. But that'll be up probably later this week. So
whenever I get it done,
yeah,
still on my desk.
Yeah, but it's a good one.
So you can get the point here that this is definitely coming out of Leicester thought and it's bubbling around.
Obviously.
But it got adopted by the Labour Party a couple of years ago. So I want to play the first clip here. This is a representative of her constituent Labour Party who went to give a talk about this, and she mentions decolonising the curriculum.
For Black, Asian and minority adults, Black, Asian and minority ethnic children. An inclusive and equitable national education service requires an ambitious and overarching plan for Black, Asian and minority ethnic students, staff, including migrant children, adult learners and refugees. This is crucial in a time of rising racism. As part of the review, an expert panel will consider how climate change and its impact are taught from primary school onwards. This is in paragraph 3, page 33, under curriculum. Teaching about climate change is vital and will have increasing significance. Reforming the curriculum should take account of this. However, the current debate around Brexit has exposed dangerous divisions in how we understand migration, including climate migration, climate refugees, belonging and empire, and how these issues affect us all. They all need to be taught as part of a broader project of decolonising and diversifying a curriculum that is part of an inclusive and equitable national education service.
God, what a word salad.
But it sounds sinister to me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when we're talking about doing this from primary school upward,
yeah,
she's talking about climate change there. But
this kind of cultural engineering, just like scientific cultural engineering, it's like, look, most culture isn't scientific, so anything that comes into contact with it, you're instantly going to go as racist, as bad. It has to go. But that's everything about what the aesthetics of England. Like the thing that makes England English is the way it looks and feels and sounds and thinks and acts. And you're like, no, that's all racist. It has to go.
I mean, that is what they're arguing. That's the Labour Party conference. God, it's so cancerous. I love how bad they are, and they just live stream it. Yeah. You can watch it on YouTube.
And they don't realise how embarrassing they are either.
Yeah, so cringe. And it's then got adopted by Labour MPs who were pushing for this in the Parliament, because of course they were. So this is Dawn Butler, who used to be the Education Secretary. I think the subsequent one is also signed on to this. But she gave a statement.
It's not David Lammy, is it?
I can't remember. At the moment, history is taught to make one group of people feel inferior and another group of people feel superior. And this needs to stop. We need to look at history and we need to improve it. History needs to be decolonised. So that's part of a speech she gave in Parliament.
I'm always up for improving history.
How does that even make any sense?
It's totally not the sort of thing they would have done in Nazi Germany or in Soviet Union or something like that. Sanitize history because it was ideologically incompatible with what they're trying to project. Absolutely not, sir. That would be ridiculous.
History is the things that have happened.
Yes.
You can't alter them. So how do you improve them?
Oh, well, they've got ways. They've got ways and means.
I also love here she says that our current education system teaches people that one group is inferior and one group is superior. I agree, Dawn Butler. I actually agree with this because we have government policies that literally discriminate against white British people who apply for jobs in this country.
Yes.
I think if you get your way, and some of what's already in the education curriculum, the way you teach these things is to make people feel that way.
Yeah.
So that part of which is racist is the woke ideology, which is already at play.
Yes.
So then this sounds absurd, but what does it look like in practice? Well, it's been put into practice. So it's all been a bit of fluff, people signing on to it, but then this happened. So University of Leicester decolonised their curriculum and actually enacted what they were suggesting. And there was a lot of anger towards this, as the article states. Hang
on, just the thing. So what does... So decolonising an English curriculum surely means removing Shakespeare.
So, yes. So this.
Okay.
Let me explain. So this COVID happens. Universities can't pay their bills because they haven't got enough students coming in. So this university decided, right, we're going to bail a bunch of people off. Perfectly fair. Whatever. Who cares? Doesn't be a story really. But they decided that they would lay off 145 people, and this would affect the English department, mathematics, business, psychology. So it's right, this is bad, but. Okay, if you need to lay people off, fine.
Are we getting rid of Newton?
No, they were just laying off people that affected all those departments. But then they also issued a statement at the same time that the university is facing anger in response to this because they dropped the English language and medieval literature modules of their English courses.
So no Chaucer.
And introduced a decolonised curriculum.
Okay.
The University of Leicester said it was considering cutting subjects after a drop in demand and instead focusing on ethnicity, sexuality, and diversity. Under the restructuring, the English department would no longer teach medieval literature due to a drop in demand for undergraduate and postgraduate students in the recent years. If adopted, the changes would also mean that the university would be discontinuing bachelors in English with an English language and masters in English language with linguistics. The university said that it planned to introduce a range of modules, so in replacement of those modules, and the modules would be exceedingly innovative, focusing on subjects such as race, ethnicity, sexuality, and diversity. Right. So they're lying. They're saying, right, we need to take cuts, that's fine, but then the cuts they're applying to the English language department is getting rid of medieval English literature, and then replacing it with modules on wokeism, sexuality, diversity, ethnicity, race. Okay, this is just propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, I love the argument. It's like, oh, look, essentially, is the English curriculum is racist. Let's replace it with race,
as if that's any kind of substitute.
Yeah.
So we know they're lying. That's what I'm trying to get at. So you mentioned Shakespeare. I think some of Shakespeare is cancelled here because all not entirely, but all teaching on canonical texts before 1500 would cease because they're getting rid of the medieval English language section. So this would include the poem Beowulf, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the Canterbury Tales would go, and the father of English literature, Chaucer, would basically not be included in anything in the English language. Bachelors. That
is a deeply, deeply disappointing thing as well, because I mean, like, Beowulf and Gawain and the Green Knight are both beautiful poems. Like, they're really interesting, and Gawain and the Green Knight in particular is really amazingly written. The descriptions of the landscape that Gawain goes through to meet the Green Knight are actually, they're so poetic. Like, they're incredible. It's a genuine pleasure to read these things. So it's like, right, okay, back you go.
If you're taking an English language module, a degree, you'd expect to focus on those kind of things, English language throughout history and how it developed. No, those are not important. Those modules will be replaced with wokeism.
But that's literally erasing the indigenous history of England.
That is what decolonisation looks like, apparently. The erasure of English culture. Doesn't sound like decolonising, sounds like colonising to me.
It does. I mean, and I keep emphasising the word indigenous because this culture didn't evolve anywhere else. It came from England.
So some good pushback on this from Education Secretary we spoke about before, Gavin Williamson. He referred to this whole thing as an absolute madness.
Yep.
So
good.
Totally
that's a start, yeah.
And then the defence from the university, so they give their fair shake, they gave a spokeswoman who came out and said decolonising the curriculum meant reconsidering how the subject is taught to make it more inclusive and reflect emerging developments. For example, many reading lists are dominated by white authors. This ignores many great BAME authors, who also means that BAME students do not see themselves reflected in what they are being taught.
But
what?
Why would that be relevant?
She said that the work was unconnected to the prose redundancies and removal of courses. So she's a liar.
Yeah. But, like, I mean, I don't see myself reflected in Beowulf.
But
I'm just saying, I mean, they're like, say, it's 8th century Saxon story about a Danish warrior is not something I feel represented in, but I don't have to feel represented to find it interesting.
He's got the same skin tone as you, so apparently you do.
Oh, I guess so. I guess so.
You can't ask the students, I guess. But also the absurdity here of saying if students are studying medieval England and they do not find black faces, therefore they feel unrepresented, therefore we must destroy the module. But imagine if you go to the Japanese studies department, and you got the white kids from Birmingham studying Japanese studies. I mean, are they going to start demanding the removal of medieval Japanese history?
You've got no choice. Logically, I'm not represented in this. I mean, we're going to really be reducing the amount of history that can actually be taught here, aren't we? Which sounds like exactly the point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is exactly the point. And I was just trying to make the point there. This only goes one way. It's not going to go any other way. You would not turn up in Nigeria and demand, all of Nigerian history be destroyed because I don't see any white faces here. I'm being underrepresented in Nigerian history.
There are no white faces in Nigerian history until like the 19th century. Therefore, scrap it. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention the vice-chancellor of this university who has been part of the group that made this decision that they would do this. This is him talking in an interview a while back during the George Floyd protests were kicking off. So this has been brewing for a long time. It's not just something he's decided. So he's saying here that the student body is 52% BAME, but of the teaching staff, only 14.2% have brown skin.
In what university?
University of Leicester.
Right, okay.
But then it's like, why does that make... Like, why do we care what the student body is?
Yeah.
Like, if you're obsessed with representation, like, surely you should do the national representation or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But no, as soon as the BAME number is bigger in the local area, then we have to use that one instead. So presumably he wants to hire 50% people with brown skin, and then that will help his university be better somehow, because he just thinks like that.
You are in England. Even if you have brown skin, you should probably learn about the history of the country you're in.
But, priorities.
I mean, if I was in a different... Sorry, people can't hear you. If I was in a different country, I would expect to learn about the history of that country.
But also, I don't know, like, take us moving to Nigeria en masse, and then a university in Nigeria has 50% white students because we can afford to go there.
Yeah.
Because we're the rich of the world. And then all of a sudden we're demanding that 50% of the teaching staff in this Nigerian university are white.
Yeah, they'd
Again,
be like,
absurd.
that's colonization.
This guy pays $250,000 for this job. Just keep that in mind.
Right, okay, yeah,
Of course he does.
does.
Quotes from him: "When you have a large population of ethnic minorities, like in Leicester, we need to make sure that they can identify with that curriculum. But I think there is still a lot more of work that needs to be done to truly decolonize the curriculum." What? Like, because there are white faces in English history, that needs to be fixed by doing what exactly?
But also, we have suddenly turned up in the last few generations, and now we want this changed. Again, it just sounds like colonization, doesn't it?
And there's also some of the absurd racist practices that are going on here.
Yeah.
The university has launched a £1.5 million annual scheme to create 3 funded PhD scholarships and 10 postgraduate scholarships to attract students from BAME communities into academia. So specifically targeting people with brown skin on the basis that they have brown skin. Because,
So, racial hiring practices, racial privileges.
and then for some reason, because ITV's in on this, they're the ones doing this interview
Of
here.
course they are.
They also mentioned at the end, around 300,000 students have signed a petition calling for The Good Immigrant by Nikita, I can't say the name, sorry, and Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, to be added to the GCSE reading list. It's like, this is a conversation about universities.
Oh God, I wish that was the
that would
case.
go up.
Could we not talk about race? I mean, I'd love for that to not be the conversation we have to have on a daily basis with race grifters.
But there's the thing, they're hinting to there, because this is a university vice-chancellor, this isn't going to stay in the universities. As soon as this is adopted by the universities, it will become part of the secondary schools and then the primary schools.
And not only that, it'll become part of the sort of ethic of the people taught by them. They'll think that it's okay for us to have a particular focus on race in every aspect of our lives.
And essentially all history before brown people exist in England is going to be
White
void.
supremacist?
Yeah, it just is by definition, and therefore needs to be improved by only representing modern history, which
That's insane.
absolutely nuts.
Again, just sounds very Soviet to me.
So the pushback on this actually came from the academics at the university. They were the ones who were losing their jobs, though. So
Well, yeah,
Bit of
I
a-
guess
double-edged
they're
sword.
invested. Yeah.
So there's one lady here who gave up an honorary doctorate. So among those who opposed to the challenges, Professor Isabel Armstrong, a fellow at the British Academy, who was returned her honorary doctorate from the university in protest of them getting rid of these modules.
Yep.
An examiner of the university's English Studies Department, Professor Catherine Clark, has also resigned in protest. She's like, this is ridiculous. There is no way you're doing this. And then the next link here is the union at the university of those academics passing a motion of no confidence in the vice-chancellor for doing this, which I'm a bit black-pilled on. They are only doing this because
It's
of
their jobs.
their layoffs. They don't care that they're pushing propaganda and destroying history.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it's something, I guess.
yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to look into something a little more homegrown to myself to try and understand the decolonize the curriculum thing more broadly, because this won't just stay in academia; it will go into companies. You'll have to decolonize Shell and decolonize BP or whatever else, right?
And everything.
Yeah, like with everything else with inclusion and diversity departments. So this is Instagram page I got. So this is at the University of Kent, the Afro-Diasporica Legal Network, and the reason I jotted this down ages ago because it's amazing. They issued a statement in which they were demanding a bunch of stuff because they claimed that the local campus security were targeting them for being black, and it was like, there's no evidence, but okay, whatever. And in those claims, they're saying they're making reference to Decolonize UKC, and therefore this is where the claims come from. So, just some quotes. Many disciplines are void of black, queer, feminist, social, political thought in theory.
Good.
Why? What? Like, if you're taking medieval history, you need to shove in there black, queer, feminist, social, political thought. Why? Why would you? When I'm studying physics, I need that, do I?
Because you're a black queer feminist who specializes in socio-political theory. That's the only reason you do it.
So they also, talking later on, this means adhering to recommendations that already exist, which focus on decolonizing our curriculum, the institution making an active effort to decolonize itself, and instead co-opting the work of Decolonise UKC, and can be critical of the curriculum that prioritizes whiteness and white supremacy. So basically anything white needs to go.
So anything English.
Anything
needs to
English.
go.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Using the term white is it conceals what they're actually doing. It's targeting a particular ethnic group here.
Because there's an ideology that comes from United States campuses, which speaks in terms of white and black, because that
which
works
is totally irrelevant in Europe.
in England makes no sense. Anywhere
you
else
can talk
on the
about
planet.
English and Scottish if you want, or Welsh and Irish or something. But
Higher representation of Scottish writers would make sense.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Okay.
And I would oppose that in principle, but like,
They also say that we demand the implementation of a physical BME student space that can be used for BME societies and collectives as a student community service hub.
so
Segregation.
A separate space for non-white people.
They want a separate space from the whites in which they can hold their brown skin societies on the basis that they have brown skin.
Okay.
So they can talk about, I don't know, how bad white people are, I guess.
Yep.
We demand the immediate hire of BME counsellors within student support and well-being that can facilitate their weekly drop-in sessions for BME students.
Okay.
So you need to hire brown counsellors on the basis
I'm all for
coddling
it. So
of brown people.
If they're making demands, the question is what are they threatening us with?
Not much.
Exactly.
There's
And
nothing there.
Yeah, exactly. So the answer is just no.
But that's the thing. No, the university will buckle on this. They buckle on
course
everything
they will.
else. So, every university is buckled on these things. I mean, working at Leicester, literally deleting their own sections.
God.
So I just wanted to mention here the Islamic Society and the UKC LGBTQ Society also endorse this message.
UKC LGBTQ.
Yeah, the alphabet people. And the Islamic Society. It's like, Islamo-leftism rise again, huh?
Macron is right about Islamo-leftism.
I also wanted to mention that the Islamic Society on campus, I went to a few of their events, they got given a Quran by them, and I just wanted to mention it's Wahhabist.
Oh.
So it has like notes about what the Quran really means, and it's talking about covering up in there. There's a section talking about it. And the notes there are like, the woman must cover up all of her body except her eyes and sometimes her hands. If I'm getting this quote right.
Sometimes her hands.
So meaning you would wear gloves, but sometimes you'd have to take the gloves off.
Right,
It's like,
okay.
Wow, this is extreme.
Very progressive. Very progressive.
Yeah. So then I went to Decolonize UKC's thing to look at what they were demanding, so primary source text, because it's always the best going to the source because you get the most crazy stuff.
Well, look at the way this is being represented.
Yeah.
God, just a fist. A multicolored fist.
So I just wanted to go through a few of the demands because it's a long-ass document that's very boring.
But it's on white paper. I mean, that's racist.
So one of the things they demand is a list of BME members of staff that are accessible to all students. What? So you would get, like, every student would get a list of all the brown teachers. It's like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, why do I need this?
I feel like they're dog whistling to the racists. I honestly do, because it strikes me that in another universe, a parallel dimension, a bunch of racists are demanding the university gives them a list of the blacks and non-white staff.
Yeah.
Like, I can't help but feel that's going to be the case.
Like, I wonder if it's like Douglas Murray talks about the supply and demand problem for Nazis.
Oh, yeah,
They're like trying to
totally.
make some Nazis, do some things, and then they can claim. Anyway.
I like the way you credited that to Douglas Murray and not me, but carry on.
Oh, is it? You made that up?
Of course I did.
Douglas, stealing
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so they
the
also
first time,
want
Douglas.
BME counsellors, mentors, and health advisors, or trained in BME issues, even if only available for specific slots on campus. Again, what the...
Again, this is just what the Nazis would be demanding. Give me a list of Jews. It's like, okay, well, no.
Student support through discussions on literature produced by staff of colour from the Global South, and a list of critical race learning modules, e.g. race, religion and law, available as additional options and publicised.
So they want a list of Australians. I also want a list of Australians.
Global South. This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Like, I hate this term. It just means third world, but they don't want to say third world. So it's like, shut up.
Okay, mate.
They also want to set up a race/racialized religion equality network to support staff. So explicitly saying we want a racialized network to support us. Just like, Okay.
I guess the Nazis would have asked for the same thing.
And then they asked for any staff enforcing the prevent duty, so the anti-terrorism duty, should undergo Islamophobia training to develop cultural competence in order to tackle racial profiling / biases and understand the impact of prevent as a form of radicalization towards Muslim students in particular.
So trying to prevent people from radicalizing is itself a radicalizing factor.
But you'll also notice there that prevent isn't explicitly about dealing with Islamist terrorism.
No, it's not.
It's not. It gets. It's meant to deal with all kinds of terrorism. Usually
But
going
they
over the mark
associate it only with
Muslims, which interesting. And then they also mention that they're talking about the attainment gap, so the fact that brown-skinned students are not performing as well as white-skinned students.
Yep.
Of course, where are the Asian-skinned students, shall I say, of the Oriental type?
Yes.
Don't know.
Well, they've been
They're not part of the graph.
they've been folded into the white people, I think, at this point.
No, they're in the white Ummah now, I
Yeah.
guess.
Which is good because it's raising our average statistics. So I mean,
Our IQ just went up. They also talk about
thanks, John.
the last thing here. There was also a lack of awareness of black scholarships, including for students in Stage 3 looking forward to convert to a master's or PhD programs, and the lack of full funding for students from the Global South is a major obstacle. This is part of a blockage in the career pipeline for students of colour at the University of Kent. Like, why do you want scholarships on the basis of your skin tone?
Why can't they just get a normal scholarship?
You tell me. Because they're brown. Is it because I'm brown? I mean, that's the
Are
argument
these
for these
universities
people.
really so racist that they won't give black people scholarships on the basis that they're black?
No, apparently they're so racist they will give money to black people on the basis they're black and not give that money to white people on the basis they're white.
Well, I mean, if they end up giving them the separate drinking fountains that they're asking for, then maybe we can confirm that
There's
they're
a
racist.
different space in which they can hold themselves.
Maybe we can actually call them racist then.
We'll give them entire separate universities, perhaps, that are separate but equal.
Like
I mean, is that what UKC want?
Like the Trump administration did with their universities, where they're like, "Oh, we're institutionally racist." Like, are you? You know, maybe the Conservatives could do the same thing.
That's literally it. And they will fold on this. They folded on
course they
everything else that I've seen them ever fold on. But this is what these people are asking for. They're asking for segregated spaces. They're asking money for only black people, support networks for only black people.
Lists of black people.
Lists of black people for God knows what reason. And we're meant to sit here and think this is normal. Like the people, you know,
Abolishing English history in English universities.
I mean, as they were doing that, the complaint wasn't even about that. The complaint was about we've lost our jobs. It's like, wait, yeah, but you don't. What, this stuff doesn't annoy you, really?
Yeah, you've got nothing to say on all of this.
Absolutely nothing.
Cowardice.
It's pathetic. But that's what the Decolonized movement is about, in case you're ever wondering. And it's been rampaging through the pipeline, and now it is being enacted. And the inaction is destroying English history, culture, and everything else on the basis that they don't have the skin tone that I have.